Hey guys! Tonight we're going back to medieval Europe to explore one of the darkest and most misunderstood roles in history. If you enjoy this journey, please think about leaving a like and comment below to let me know where in the world you're watching from. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. For now, dim the lights. Get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and just listen. Let the world outside fade away as we step into another life, another time. The first thing you are aware of is the cold. It is not a sudden, sharp cold, but a deep, ancient cold that lives in the very bones of the stone floor beneath your cot. It creeps up through the thin straw mattress, through the coarse wool of your blanket, and settles into your marrow. It is a familiar cold, the companion of every dawn. You do not open your eyes yet. There is no reason to. The darkness behind your eyelids is only a shade deeper than the darkness of the room. Nothing has changed. The world has not offered you a reprieve in the night. You lie still, listening. The wind whines a low, mournful song as it slips through the cracks in the shuttered window. It is a lonely sound, but it is a sound. It is better than the silence. In the silence, you hear other things. Echoes. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders, the rough fibers scratching against your neck. The smell of the wool is heavy and greasy with lanolin, mixed with the faint, ever-present scent of wood smoke and something else. Something metallic and vaguely sweet that never quite washes out of your clothes, your hair, your home. You allow yourself a few more moments in this state of suspension, hovering between the nothingness of sleep and the weight of waking. You can feel the map of your own body, the ache in your lower back from the lumpy mattress, the stiffness in your knuckles, a dull throb that worsens with every passing year, especially in this damp air. You are not an old man, not yet, but your body feels ancient, worn down like a river stone, smoothed and shaped by a current of thankless, heavy work. You drag a breath into your lungs, and it feels thick, heavy with the cold. The air tastes of stone dust and damp earth. Your home is built into the old city wall, a forgotten nook that no one else wanted, its back pressed against the massive, cold stones that separate the town from the wilderness. It is a fitting place. You are a part of the wall, necessary, but grim, a barrier, a finality. Finally, with a sigh that turns into a white plume in the air, you force your eyes open. The world swims into a monochrome existence. Gray light, thin as watered milk, seeps through the ill-fitting window shutter. It illuminates the familiar shapes of your small, single room. The squat stone hearth, cold and dark, a pile of gray ash in its belly. The single wooden chair, its back scarred with knife marks from years of your own idle whittling. The heavy oak table, its surface scrubbed but still bearing the faint ghosts of old stains that no amount of sand or lye can ever fully remove. And in the corner, shrouded in shadow, are the tools. You do not look at them. Not yet. Morning is for the living. You swing your legs over the side of the cot. The instant your bare feet touch the stone floor, the cold bites with a renewed ferocity. It is a physical shock, a jolt that travels up your spine and makes you gasp. You stand up, your joints cracking a small, dry protest. You move toward the hearth, your movements slow and deliberate, a habit born of conserving energy and warmth. You do not rush. Rushing is for men with places to be, with people to see. Your only appointments are with misery, and misery is never in a hurry. It always waits. You kneel before the hearth. Your hands, calloused and thick, begin the familiar morning ritual. You clear away some of the old ash, exposing the few embers still faintly glowing deep within. They are like sleeping rubies, a fragile promise of warmth. You gently lay a handful of dry tinder, slivers of wood and frayed bits of rope, over the embers. You lean in close, your face just inches from the cold stone, and you blow. A long, steady, patient breath. The embers brighten, a faint orange blush. You blow again. A tiny, hesitant flame licks at the tinder. It flickers, dances, and for a moment you think it will die, but it catches. The tinder crackles to life, and a fragile warmth begins to push back against the oppressive cold of the room. You add larger kindling, then a small log from the meager pile beside the hearth. The fire grows, casting flickering, dancing shadows on the stone walls. The room comes alive in the light, the shadows making the familiar objects seem strange and monstrous for a moment before settling back into their known forms. You remain kneeling, holding your hands out to the growing flames, feeling the life seep back into your numb fingers. It is a small comfort, but it is a comfort nonetheless. The fire is a loyal friend. It does not judge, it does not shun you. It simply gives its warmth to whoever kneels before it. Once the fire is stable, you turn to the other morning task. You cross the room to a large wooden bucket filled with water. A thin sheet of ice has formed on its surface overnight. You punch through it with your fist, the icy water stinging your knuckles. You scoop a handful of water and splash it onto your face. It is a brutal awakening. It washes away the lingering cobwebs of sleep and leaves your skin feeling tight and raw. You run your wet hands through your hair, slicking it back. You do not own a mirror. You have not seen your own face in years, not properly. You see a distorted reflection sometimes in a polished blade or in a still puddle after the rain, but it is a stranger's face, a grim mask you do not recognize. You know the jaw is tight, the mouth set in a permanent line. You know there are lines around the eyes, etched not by laughter, but by squinting into the sun on a scaffold, by staring into the faces of the condemned. It is better not to look. You dry your face on a rough piece of linen that hangs from a nail on the wall. Then, you dress. The clothes are simple, functional. A linen under-tunic, patched at the elbows. Woolen trousers, held up with a leather cord. You pull on thick woolen socks and then your boots. The boots are your most prized possession. The leather is thick and sturdy, well oiled against the damp. They were part of a payment once, taken from a man who no longer needed them. You do not think about that. You cannot afford to think about that. The boots keep your feet dry. That is all that matters. Finally, you pull on a heavy leather jerkin. It is stiff and worn, smelling faintly of old sweat and metal. It is your work attire, an armor of sorts against the world. Now, food. You are not a man of appetite. Food is fuel, nothing more. You walk to a small wooden chest in the corner and lift the lid. Inside is a round loaf of dark rye bread, hard as a rock. There is a small wheel of cheese, sweating a little in the relative warmth of the room. You use a small, sharp knife to saw off a thick slice of the bread and a wedge of the cheese. You take your meal to the table and sit on the scarred wooden chair. The fire crackles and pops in the hearth, the only sound in the room. You chew the bread slowly. It is dense and sour, but it fills the hollowness in your stomach. The cheese is sharp and salty. You eat without pleasure, without thought, your eyes fixed on the dancing flames. This is your life. The cold, the fire, the hard bread. A cycle of simple, stark survival. It is a life of solitude. The townsfolk avoid you. When they see you in the street, they cross to the other side, mothers pulling their children close, men averting their gazes. You are a necessary evil, a public stain. You are the town's hangman, its headsman, its final, bloody solution. You are the hand that holds the axe, the rope, the branding iron. They need you to uphold their laws, to purge their society of its unwanted elements, but they do not want to be near you. They do not want to be tainted by your touch, by your very presence. You are a ghost who walks in daylight. After you finish your meal, you wipe the crumbs from the table with the side of your hand. It is time. You can put it off no longer. You stand up and walk to the corner of the room where the tools are kept. They are covered by a thick canvas cloth, not to hide them, but to protect them from the damp. You pull the cloth away. The firelight glints off polished steel. There are several items, each with its own grim purpose. A set of manacles, a branding iron with the town's crest, a long, coiled whip of braided leather, a sturdy rope, thick as your wrist, with a perfectly tied hangman's knot at one end. And then there is the axe. It is not a wood-chopping axe. It is a headsman's axe, a tool of terrible precision. The handle is long and smooth, made of ash wood, worn to a dark patina from the grip of your hands. The head is a massive crescent of steel, its edge honed to a razor sharpness. Beside it, leaning against the wall, is the sword. The sword is for nobility. Beheading by sword is a privilege, a swifter, more honorable death. The axe is for commoners. You have used both. Today, you decide to work on the axe. You lift it. The weight is familiar, a solid, grim presence in your hands. You run your thumb gently, very gently, along the edge. It is sharp, but it can always be sharper. A clean cut is a mercy. A botched job is a horror for everyone involved. For the condemned, for the crowd, and for you. It brings shame. It brings nightmares. You carry the axe to the table. From a small wooden box, you take out your sharpening tools. A large whetstone, a smaller, finer stone, a leather strop, and a small pot of oil. This is a ritual, a form of meditation. You lay the whetstone on the table and pour a little water on it. Then you lay the axe head flat against the stone, holding the handle with one hand and pressing down on the steel with the other. You find the perfect angle, the one you know by feel, by 1,000 repetitions. And then you begin to draw the blade across the stone. The sound fills the room. A long, slow, rhythmic shish. A grating whisper of stone against steel. You push the blade away from you, then draw it back. Shish. The muscles in your arms and shoulders bunch and release. Your focus narrows until there is nothing in the world but you, the axe, and the stone. You are not thinking about the purpose of the axe. You are not thinking about the lives it has ended. You are thinking only of the edge, of the burr of steel being slowly, meticulously worn away, of the perfect, clean line of light that will appear along the blade when you are done. The work is slow, demanding patience. You work for what feels like an hour, the rhythmic sound of the sharpening the only sound besides the crackling fire. You lose track of time. This is your craft, a terrible craft, a bloody craft, but a craft nonetheless. You take pride in your tools, in your skill. It is the only pride you are allowed. You cannot take pride in a well-tended garden, in a well-raised child, in a well-built house. You can only take pride in a clean cut. You move from the coarse whetstone to the finer one. The sound changes. It becomes higher-pitched, smoother. Less a grating, more a hiss. You feel the change in the steel under your fingers. It becomes smoother, silkier. The edge is now almost invisible, a line of pure sharpness. You wipe the blade clean with a rag and inspect it in the firelight. A thin, bright line gleams back at you. It is almost ready. The final step is the leather strop. You hang the strop from a hook on the wall and apply a thin layer of polishing paste. Then you begin to draw the axe blade along the leather, back and forth, back and forth. This does not sharpen the blade further, but it hones the edge to a terrifying perfection, removing any microscopic imperfections. The sound is a soft, stropping whisper. Swish, swish, swish. It is a deceptively gentle sound for such a deadly object. When you are finally satisfied, you hold the axe up. The edge is a perfect, clean, unbroken line. It looks like it could split a single hair. You feel a small, grim satisfaction. This is your work. This is what you do. You carefully oil the axe head to protect it from rust, then carry it back to its corner and cover it once more with the canvas cloth. The room feels quieter now that the sharpening is done. The silence feels heavier. You have spent the morning with death, preparing its instrument. Now, the rest of the day stretches before you, a vast, empty expanse of time. You have no other tasks today. No one has been sentenced. No one requires your services. These days are the worst. The days of waiting. You decide to walk. You need to get out of this small stone box. You pull on your jerkin, check that the fire is banked, and unlatch the heavy wooden door. The door opens not into a street, but onto a narrow, muddy track that runs along the base of the city wall. You step outside and pull the door shut behind you. The air is cold and damp, smelling of wet earth and decaying leaves. The sky is a uniform sheet of gray cloud, heavy and low. You begin to walk along the track, your boots squelching in the mud. To your right is the massive, unyielding stone of the city wall, stained with green moss and damp patches. To your left, the ground slopes away into a tangle of scrubland and bare-branched trees. This is your domain, the no-man's land between the city and the wilderness. You can hear the sounds of the town over the wall, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of a cart on a cobbled street, the faint shouts of merchants in the marketplace. Voices, life, it all seems very far away. You walk for a long time, your head bowed, your eyes on the muddy ground. You see the tracks of a fox, the delicate footprints of a bird. The world out here is simple. It does not know your name. It does not know your trade. A rabbit, startled by your approach, darts from a bush and disappears into the undergrowth. It flees from the shape of a man, not from the man himself. There is a purity in that. You reach the old quarry, a great scar in the earth where the stones for the wall were hewn centuries ago. It is a quiet, desolate place. The stone walls of the quarry are sheer and gray, and a deep, dark pool of water has collected at the bottom. You sit on a large, flat rock at the edge of the quarry, looking down into the still, black water. You can see your reflection, a dark, hooded shape against the gray sky. A faceless man. You pick up a small stone and toss it into the water. It disappears with a soft plop, and ripples spread out across the surface, distorting your reflection until it vanishes completely. You watch until the water is still again. The silence here is different from the silence in your room. It is a natural silence, a peaceful silence. It is not filled with echoes. You sit there for a long time, doing nothing, thinking nothing. Just being, a man on a rock, staring at water. For a few precious moments, you are not the executioner. You are just a man. But the cold eventually seeps in, a persistent reminder of reality. The brief moment of peace passes. The weight of your life settles back onto your shoulders. You know you cannot stay here forever. You must go back to your stone room, to your grim tools, to your solitude. You stand up, your joints stiff, and begin the long walk back along the muddy track. The sounds of the town grow louder as you approach the wall. The blacksmith's hammer is more distinct now. You can hear a dog barking. The smells of the town drift over the wall. Wood smoke, baking bread, the sour tang of the tannery. Smells of a life you are not a part of. You reach your door, a dark slash in the gray stone of the wall. You place your hand on the cold iron latch. You pause for a moment, gathering yourself. Then you open the door and step back into the shadows of your home. You close the door, and the sounds of the town are muffled once more. You are alone again, in the quiet, in the cold. The fire has burned low. You add another log, and as the flames lick up, you sit in your chair and stare into them, waiting for the day to end. Waiting for the next day to begin. Waiting for the inevitable summons. Waiting for the work that defines you, that isolates you, that consumes you. Waiting. That is the essence of your life. The long, silent, lonely wait. The afternoon stretches on, a vast and empty sea of time. You consider your other tools. The whip needs oiling, its leather is growing stiff. The manacles could be cleaned of a few specks of rust that have begun to form in the damp air. There is always work to be done, maintenance to be performed. Your tools must always be ready. An order can come at any time, for any purpose. It is not always the axe or the sword. Sometimes it is the brand. A thief caught for the third time, to be marked for all to see. Sometimes it is the whip. A public flogging for a blasphemer or a debtor. Sometimes it is simply the pillory. You are the one who locks the unfortunate soul into the wooden frame, who stands guard while the crowd throws rotten fruit and stones. You are the keeper of the town's punishments, the master of its official pain. Each task requires its own tool, its own mindset. But today there is no order. There is only the silence and the slow passage of time. You decide against working more. You have done enough for one day. To spend the entire day with your tools is to let the work consume you completely. You need to hold onto some small part of yourself that is not defined by them. So you sit, you watch the fire, you listen to the wind, you drift in and out of a light, restless doze. The world outside the door continues without you. The sun, though you cannot see it, must be arcing across the sky. The market will be busy. People will be haggling, gossiping, living their lives. Children will be playing in the narrow streets. Lovers will be stealing glances. None of it is for you. Your existence is a secret kept in plain sight. As dusk begins to fall, the gray light at the window deepens to a bruised purple. The room fills with shadows. The fire is the only source of light now, and it makes the small space feel even more confined, a tiny bubble of warmth and light in an ocean of darkness and cold. A gnawing emptiness in your stomach reminds you that you have not eaten since the morning. You get up and repeat the simple ritual of your morning meal. Another thick slice of the hard rye bread, another wedge of the sharp cheese. You eat it standing by the fire this time, for the warmth. You eat slowly, methodically. When you are done, you have a decision to make. You can stay here, in the suffocating silence of your room. Or you can go into the town. It is a choice you face most evenings. To embrace the solitude, or to endure the scorn. Tonight, the silence is too loud. It is filled with the shish of the whetstone, a sound that seems to have sunk into the very walls. You need to hear other voices, even if they are not speaking to you. Even if they fall silent when you approach. You pull your thick, dark cloak from a peg on the wall. You pull the hood up, shadowing your face. It is not a disguise. Everyone knows who the man in the dark cloak who lives by the wall is. It is a sign, a warning, a way of moving through the world without having to meet anyone's eyes. You unlatch the door and step out into the twilight. The wind has died down. The air is still and cold. You walk the muddy track until it meets a narrow, cobbled lane that leads through a small gate into the town itself. The gate is unguarded. It is not a main entrance. It is a postern gate, used by servants and tradesmen. It is your gate. You slip through it and find yourself in the back alleys of the town. The smells are stronger here. The air is thick with the stench of refuse, of chamber pots emptied from upper windows of the nearby tannery. The streets are narrow, the timber-framed houses leaning in on each other, almost touching at the top, blocking out what little is left of the sky. You keep to the shadows, your footsteps soft on the damp cobbles. You see figures in the gloom, people hurrying home from their work. A baker, covered in flour, his face pale in the twilight. A dyer, his hands stained a deep blue. They see you. You see the flicker of recognition in their eyes, the slight flinch, the way they press themselves against the wall to give you a wide berth. You do not acknowledge them. You keep your eyes fixed on the ground in front of you. You are a rock in the stream of their lives. The water parts around you and then flows on, leaving you untouched, unmoved. Your destination is a tavern. Not a cheerful, brightly lit tavern in the main square where merchants and off-duty guards gather. Your tavern is a low-beamed, smoke-filled hovel called the Leaky Cask, tucked away in one of the poorest parts of the town. It is a place for beggars, for thieves, for men who have nowhere else to go. It is the only place in town that will serve you. You push open the heavy wooden door. A wave of noise and heat washes over you. The air is thick with the smell of cheap ale, unwashed bodies, and wood smoke. The room is crowded and dimly lit by a few sputtering tallow candles. A dozen conversations are happening at once, a low, rumbling hum of human voices. As you step inside, a hush falls over the tables nearest the door. Men look up, see the hooded figure, and then quickly look down into their cups. The conversations do not stop entirely, but they falter, their volume dropping to a murmur. You ignore them. You walk to the far corner of the room, to a small, isolated table that is always left empty for you. It is your table. No one else ever sits there. You sit down on the rough wooden bench, your back to the wall. You keep your hood up. A serving girl, a young woman with a hard face and weary eyes, approaches your table. She does not smile. She does not greet you. She simply stands there, waiting. You place 2 small copper coins on the table. It is the price of a mug of ale. She scoops up the coins without a word, turns, and walks to the bar. She returns a moment later and places a wooden mug filled with dark ale on your table. Foam sloshes over the side. She turns and walks away without looking at you. The transaction is complete. You wrap your hands around the mug. It is cool and damp. You take a long drink. The ale is bitter and thin, but it is wet. It cuts through the dryness in your throat. You sit there in your corner, a shadow among shadows, and you listen. The tavern slowly comes back to life. The conversations regain their volume. The men forget you are there, or at least they pretend to. You hear snippets of their lives. A man complaining about the price of grain. Another boasting of a successful bet on a cockfight. 2 men arguing about a woman. It is the sound of the world. The mundane, messy, vibrant world that you are excluded from. You are an observer, a listener. You nurse your ale, making it last. You have nowhere else to be. This is the extent of your social life. Sitting alone in a corner, drinking bad ale, listening to strangers talk. An hour passes. Then another. You get a second mug of ale. The alcohol does not make you feel drunk. It only dulls the edges of the cold, the ache in your back. It makes the silence in your head a little quieter. Then, you hear a word that makes you freeze. A man at a nearby table, a large, loud man with a red face, is talking. And the Baron says he'll have his head, mark my words. Caught him with his daughter, they did. A stable boy. The man's companion shushes him, glancing nervously in your direction. The red-faced man lowers his voice, but you can still hear him. What? It's true. The sentence is passed. They'll be calling on him soon enough. He jerks his head in your direction. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach. So, an order is coming. A stable boy, young, most likely, for loving the wrong person. The world shrinks down to that single fact. The sharpening of the axe this morning was not just a task. It was a prelude. You stare down into your ale. The dark liquid reflects the flickering candlelight. You see no face, just darkness. You suddenly feel suffocated by the heat and the noise of the tavern. The air feels thick, unbreathable. You stand up abruptly. Your bench scrapes against the floor, and the sound is unnaturally loud. The nearby conversations stop again. All eyes are on you. You place your empty mug on the table and turn to leave. You walk through the silent room, a path clearing before you as if by magic. You push the door open and step back out into the cold night air. You do not look back. The walk home is a blur. The narrow streets seem darker, more menacing. The shadows seem to dance and writhe. You hear the red-faced man's words over and over in your head. He'll have his head, your hand, your axe. You reach the postern gate and slip through it, back into the no man's land along the wall. The silence here is no longer peaceful. It is filled with anticipation, with dread. You reach your door and fumble with the latch. You step inside and are greeted by the familiar cold and the dying embers in the hearth. You close the door and lean against it, your heart hammering in your chest. The summons will come tomorrow, or the day after. You will have to prepare the scaffold. You will have to face the crowd. You will have to look into the eyes of a young man about to die for love. You push yourself away from the door and walk to your cot. You do not bother to undress. You collapse onto the thin mattress and pull the rough blanket over you. You close your eyes, but sleep does not come. You just lie there, in the cold, in the dark, waiting for a dawn you do not wish to see. You do not truly sleep. You drift in a shallow, gray ocean of consciousness, tossed by waves of anxiety. Fragments of dreams, sharp and unsettling, rise to the surface and then sink again. You see a face, young and terrified. You feel the weight of the axe in your hands, heavier than it has ever been. You hear the shushing sound of the whetstone, a sound that grates on your very soul. Each time you approach the edge of true sleep, a jolt of dread pulls you back, a physical sensation like falling. The cold of the room seems to have found its way inside you, a shard of ice lodged deep in your chest. You lie rigid, every muscle tensed, listening to the wind, listening to the frantic beating of your own heart. When the first hint of gray light finally appears at the edge of the shutter, it feels less like a dawn and more like a sentence being confirmed. The night has offered no escape. The day has arrived, bringing with it the certainty of your duty. You lie there for a long time, watching the light grow, watching it slowly reveal the familiar, grim details of your room. The cold hearth, the scarred table, the shrouded corner where your tools wait patiently. They do not share your dread. They are merely objects, extensions of a will that is not entirely your own. You are the one who must feel. You are the one who must carry the weight. With a groan, you force yourself to sit up. Your body aches with a weariness that sleep has not cured. Your mouth is dry, tasting of stale ale and fear. The room is colder than yesterday. A deep, biting cold that promises a harsh day. You swing your legs out of the cot, and the shock of the stone floor is a familiar punishment. You do not bother with the fire yet. You do not bother with food. There is a hollowness in your stomach that food cannot fill. Instead, you walk to the water bucket. The layer of ice on top is thicker this morning. You break it with the heel of your hand, the sharp edges of the ice scraping your skin. You plunge your face into the frigid water, holding it there until your lungs burn. You come up sputtering, gasping for air, the cold a brutal, clarifying shock. It washes away the fog of your restless night, leaving only the sharp, clear lines of what must be done. You dress in the same worn, functional clothes. The under-tunic, the woolen trousers, the heavy leather jerkin. You pull on your boots, lacing them tight. Each movement is slow, deliberate, heavy with a sense of ritual. You are preparing yourself, putting on your armor not of steel, but of detachment. You are becoming the executioner. The man who sat by the quarry yesterday. The man who listened to the voices in the tavern. He must be put away. He is a liability. He feels too much. A sharp rap on your door makes you flinch. It is too early. You were not expecting it so soon. Your heart leaps into your throat. You stand frozen for a moment, your hand hovering over the final lace of your boot. The knock comes again, louder this time, more insistent. An official knock. You take a deep breath, trying to calm the tremor in your hands. You walk to the door, your boots loud on the stone floor. You lift the heavy wooden bar and pull the door open a few inches. A man stands there, silhouetted against the pale morning light. He is dressed in the Baron's livery, a fine tunic of blue and gold, now slightly splattered with mud from the track. He is young, his face smooth and nervous. He avoids your eyes, his gaze fixed on a point just over your shoulder. In his hand, he holds a rolled scroll, tied with a blue ribbon and sealed with the Baron's wax seal. He does not speak, he simply thrusts the scroll towards you. You take it, your calloused fingers brush against his gloved ones, and he snatches his hand back as if he has been burned. The scroll feels heavy in your hand, heavy with the weight of a life. The man mutters something, his voice low and rushed. The day after tomorrow, dawn, in the main square. He turns and walks away quickly, almost running, his boots slipping in the mud. He does not look back. You stand in the doorway, the cold air washing over you, the scroll in your hand. You watch until he disappears through the postern gate. You are left alone with the message. You close the door, the sound of the bar sliding into place unnervingly final. You walk to the table and lay the scroll down. You do not open it. You do not need to. You already know what it says. The legal jargon, the formal condemnation, the name of the stable boy. It is all just ink on parchment. The truth of it is much simpler. A boy will die, and you will be the one to kill him. You look at the scroll, at the neat blue ribbon, at the proud seal of the wolf's head. Instruments of power, so clean, so neat. They write the words, they apply the seal, and they hand it to you. They keep their hands clean. Yours will be stained. You finally turn to the hearth and build the fire. The familiar ritual is a small comfort. a mindless task to occupy your hands. As the flames grow, you make yourself eat. The same hard bread, the same sharp cheese. It tastes like ash in your mouth, but you force yourself to swallow. You will need your strength. The day after tomorrow. That gives you today and tomorrow to prepare. Today, you must prepare the scaffold. Tomorrow, the final preparations, the honing of the soul. You finish your meager meal and prepare to leave. You shrug on your hooded cloak. Before you go, you walk to the corner and pull back the canvas sheet from your tools. You look at the axe. It seems to gleam with a malevolent light in the fire's glow. Its perfect edge waits. You do not touch it. You turn away and walk out the door, into the gray, cold morning. The walk to the town square is different today. You are no longer just a shadow moving through the streets. You are a man with a purpose, and that purpose is known. The news has likely spread through the town like a fever. The stable boy and the baron's daughter. A story of love and tragedy, a spectacle for the masses. And you are to be the final act. You feel the eyes on you more acutely today. People do not just avert their gaze. They stare, a mixture of fear, morbid curiosity, and contempt in their eyes. They whisper to each other as you pass. You hear your title muttered like a curse. The headsman. You pull your hood lower, trying to make yourself smaller, to disappear. But you cannot. Your presence is a harbinger of the event to come. You are a walking memento mori. You reach the main square. It is a large, open space, paved with uneven cobblestones. In the center stands the market cross, and to one side, the public well. On the far side, in front of the town hall, is a raised stone platform. This is where the scaffold is erected. It stands there now, a skeleton of dark, weathered wood, disassembled and stacked neatly against the wall of the town hall. It is your job to assemble it. You walk towards the pile of wood, each step feeling heavy, deliberate. A few stray dogs sniff around the square. A group of children, seeing you approach the platform, stop their game and watch you, their eyes wide. Their mothers call them away in hushed, urgent tones. The wood is cold and damp to the touch. You begin the work. It is heavy, physical labor. You know each piece of the scaffold by heart. The 4 thick upright posts. The long, heavy planks for the floor. The crossbeams that hold it all together. The short flight of steps. And the block. The block is a single, massive piece of oak, almost as wide as your chest, its top surface concave and stained a deep, dark brown that has soaked into the wood over decades. It is impossibly heavy. You have to use a system of levers and rollers to move it into place. You work methodically, your breath pluming in the cold air. The work is a blessing. It occupies your body and your mind. You focus on fitting the mortise and tenon joints together, on hammering the large wooden pegs into place. The sound of your mallet striking the wood echoes across the square. Thump, thump, thump. It is a steady, rhythmic beat, the heartbeat of the work. People begin to gather at a distance, watching you. They do not come close, but they watch. You are the first part of the show. The setup. You feel their eyes on your back, 1,000 tiny pressures. You ignore them. You focus on the wood, on the joints, on the solid, physical reality of the structure growing under your hands. It takes you hours. The sun, a pale, watery disk, climbs higher in the gray sky. Your muscles ache. Sweat cools on your skin under your jerkin. You work without stopping, without resting. You want it to be over. Finally, the main structure is complete. A sturdy, square platform, standing about the height of a man, with a simple wooden rail on 3 sides. The fourth side is open, facing the square. The steps lead up to it. Now, for the block. You roll the heavy block of oak up a ramp of planks and onto the platform. You heave and strain, your muscles screaming in protest, until you have it positioned in the very center. You stand back and look at your work. The scaffold. It dominates the square, a stark, ugly intrusion into the daily life of the town. It is a promise of what is to come. It is a stage for a play where the final act is real, and there are no curtain calls. Your work is not yet done. You check every peg, every joint. You walk on the platform, testing its strength, stamping your feet on the planks. It must be solid. There can be no mistakes, no accidents. A collapse would be a disaster, a farce. The dignity of the law, as they call it, must be upheld. Even in death, there is protocol. There is order. When you are satisfied that the structure is sound, you gather your tools, your mallet and levers, and stack them neatly against the base. You are finished for today. The stage is set. You turn to leave the square. The crowd of onlookers has grown. They part for you as you walk through them. No one speaks. The only sound is the shuffling of their feet on the cobblestones. You feel a deep, soul-crushing weariness. It is not just the physical labor. It is the weight of their stares, the weight of the silent, waiting scaffold. You walk back through the narrow, winding streets, back to the solitude of your home by the wall. The journey feels longer this time. Each step is an effort. You do not stop at the tavern tonight. You have no desire for the company of whispers. You want only silence. You reach your door and let yourself in. The room is cold, the fire having died down to a bed of pale embers. You do not bother to rekindle it. The cold feels appropriate. It matches the cold inside you. You strip off your cloak and jerkin. Your under-tunic is damp with sweat. You peel it off and stand shivering in the gloom. You walk to the corner and pull back the canvas from your tools. The axe, the sword. Tomorrow you will give them their final polish. Tomorrow you will prepare your own mind. Tonight, you have nothing left. You crawl into your cot, pulling the rough blanket over your shivering body. You close your eyes, and this time, sleep comes for you. It is not a peaceful sleep. It is a heavy, dreamless abyss, a black pit of exhaustion. It is not rest. It is an obliteration. You fall into it like a stone, grateful for the temporary cessation of feeling, of thought, of being. The scaffold stands waiting in the square. The boy waits in a cell. And you, the fulcrum upon which this whole grim affair turns, you sleep the sleep of the damned, a brief, black respite before the final day. You wake to a sound you do not recognize. It is not the wind. It is not the distant sounds of the town. It is a soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It is coming from your window shutter. For a moment, in the disoriented state between sleep and waking, you are filled with a primal fear. No one ever comes to your window. Ever. You lie frozen, your ears straining in the darkness. Tap, tap, tap. It is gentle, hesitant. Not the sharp rap of an official. This is something else. Slowly, silently, you slip out of your cot. The stone floor is brutally cold against your bare feet. You creep towards the window, your heart hammering against your ribs. The room is pitch black, the fire long dead. You press your ear against the rough wood of the shutter. You can hear breathing on the other side, shallow and quick. "Hello?" a voice whispers. It is a woman's voice, young and trembling. "Please, are you there?" You do not answer. Your mind is racing. Who is she? What does she want? This is wrong. This is dangerous. Any association with you is ruinous for a normal citizen. For a woman to seek you out in the dead of night, it is unthinkable. I know you are there, she whispers again, her voice cracking with desperation. I saw the light from your fire earlier. Please, I must talk to you. I have money. Money, that is a language you understand. But this is not about money. You can feel it. Go away, you rasp, your voice rough with sleep and disuse. This is no place for you. Please, she begs, and now you can hear the sound of sobbing, a desperate, muffled sound. It's my brother, the stable boy. His name is Thomas. Your blood runs cold. The stable boy's sister. Here, at your window. This is a nightmare. There is nothing I can do, you say, your voice hard, trying to force her away with its coldness. The sentence is passed. It is the Baron's law. I know, she sobs. I am not asking you to save him. I know that is impossible. I am asking for a kindness. A kindness. The word is so alien in your world that you almost laugh. What kindness can you offer? Your entire existence is the antithesis of kindness. What do you want? You ask, your voice low. I want a clean death for him, she says, her voice barely a whisper. I have heard stories of botched executions, of suffering. I have sold everything I own. You hear the clink of coins, a heavy sound, like a small bag being shifted. This is all I have. Please, I beg you, grant my brother a quick end. Do not let him suffer. You stand there, your forehead pressed against the cold wood of the shutter, the woman's desperate plea echoing in the small, dark room. A clean cut, a mercy. She is trying to buy a mercy from you. The grim irony of it is a physical blow. You take pride in your clean cuts. You do it for your own sake, for your own sanity, to avoid the nightmares that come with a clumsy hand. And here is this woman, thinking she needs to bribe you for it. Thinking your professionalism, the one thing you have, is for sale. Or perhaps she thinks you are a monster who would be deliberately cruel without payment. Maybe she is right. Maybe that is what you are. You feel a wave of something you have not felt in a long time. A hot, bitter shame. You are the man who frightens young women into selling all they own to beg for a merciful death for their brother. This is the reality of your life. This is the service you provide. Your money is not needed, you say, your voice thick. The cut will be clean. There is a long silence from the other side of the shutter. You can hear her ragged breathing. Do you swear it? She whispers. You close your eyes. What oath can a man like you swear? On what honor? I do, you say. And in that moment, you mean it more than you have ever meant anything in your life. You will not fail this boy. You will not fail this woman. You will give them the only thing you have to give, a perfect, swift, and terrible end. You hear another sob, but this one sounds different. It sounds like relief. Thank you, she whispers. God keep you. And then you hear the sound of her footsteps, hurrying away, fading into the night. You stand at the window for a long time, listening to the silence she has left behind. God keep you. No one has said that to you in 20 years. You slide down the wall and sit on the cold stone floor, your back against the shutter. You wrap your arms around your knees and you stay there, in the darkness, until the gray light of dawn begins to creep once more into your room. The day of the execution has arrived. Dawn breaks not with light, but with sound. A low, persistent hum from beyond the city wall, a sound that grows steadily in volume and texture. It is the sound of the crowd. You have been awake for hours, sitting on the cold floor, the memory of the girl's voice a fresh wound in the silence of your mind. You did not try to sleep again. Instead, you prepared, methodically, ritually. You built the fire, its light pushing back the shadows but not the chill that has settled deep within you. You washed yourself with the icy water, scrubbing your skin as if you could wash away the grime of your profession. You dressed with care, and then, you turned to the tools. You did not sharpen the axe. It was already perfect. To touch it with the whetstone now would be a desecration of the promise you made in the dark. Instead, you polished it. With a soft cloth and fine ash, you rubbed the steel head until it shone with a dark, cold light. You polished the handle until the ash wood felt as smooth as silk beneath your fingers. This was not about function. This was about respect, a strange, twisted form of respect for the tool, for the victim, for the act itself. You did the same for the sword, though you knew it would not be used today. A stable boy did not warrant the use of a nobleman's instrument. But your tools are a set. They are cared for together. They are extensions of your will, and today, your will must be flawless. Now, sitting on your cot, you eat. You force down the hard bread, the dry cheese. Your stomach is a tight knot, but you know you need the substance. A tremor in the hand can come from hunger as easily as from fear. You must be steady. You eat like a soldier before a battle, mechanically, without taste, fueling the body for the ordeal to come. The hum of the crowd is a constant presence now, a beast waking outside the walls. You can distinguish individual sounds within it. The rumble of cartwheels, the shouts of vendors setting up stalls to sell pies and ale, the laughter and jeers of the early arrivals. An execution is a holiday for them, a day of grim entertainment, a break from the monotony of their lives. They do not think of the boy. They think of the spectacle. It is time. You stand and pull on your leather jerkin. It feels heavy today, a weight on your shoulders. You walk to the small, lidless trunk where you keep the final pieces of your uniform. The long, black leather gloves that reach to your elbows. You pull them on, working your fingers into the stiff leather. They feel like a second skin, cold and impersonal. And then, the hood. It is made of thick, black cloth, a simple bag with 2 round holes cut for the eyes. It smells of old sweat, of fear, of you. You hold it in your hands for a moment, the coarse fabric a familiar weight. This is the mask that separates the man from the monster. This is what allows you to do what you do. It erases your face, your identity. It turns you into a symbol, an instrument of the law. You pull it over your head. The world changes. Your vision is narrowed to 2 small circles. Your hearing is muffled. The sounds of the room, the crackling fire, the distant crowd, all become muted, distant. You are inside your own small, dark world now. The air you breathe is stale and close, tasting of the cloth. This is the final step in the preparation. The man is gone. Only the executioner remains. You walk to the corner and pick up the axe. Its weight is a comfort, a solid, terrible reality in your hands. You walk to the door, your movements stiff and deliberate within the confines of your new identity. You unlatch the door and step outside. The morning is gray and damp. A fine mist hangs in the air, making the cobblestones slick. The sounds of the town are louder here, a wave of noise that washes over you. You begin your walk. The muddy track, the postern gate, the narrow, stinking alleys. But today, the alleys are not empty. They are filled with people, all moving in the same direction. Towards the square, they flow around you like water around a stone, a river of humanity drawn to the spectacle of death. They do not look at you now. They look at the axe. It is the center of their attention. a dark star pulling them into its orbit. They give you a wide berth, pressing themselves against the damp walls, their eyes a mixture of awe and revulsion. You are no longer a man to be shunned. You are a priest of a dark religion, on your way to perform the sacred rite, and they are your congregation. You emerge into the square, and the full force of the crowd hits you. It is a sea of faces, 1,000 people packed into the space between the buildings. They stand on balconies, they sit on rooftops, they climb the market cross for a better view. The air is thick with the smell of them, unwashed bodies, cheap ale, roasting nuts, and underneath it all, a palpable scent of excitement, of bloodlust. The noise is a physical force, a roar of 1,000 conversations, shouts, and laughter. In the center of it all stands the scaffold, your creation. It looks small now, dwarfed by the sheer mass of people surrounding it. A path is cleared for you. 2 lines of town guards, their faces grim, hold the crowd back with their pikes. You walk the path, your boots ringing on the cobblestones. You feel the pressure of 1,000 pairs of eyes on your hooded form. You keep your gaze fixed forward, on the steps of the scaffold. You do not look at the faces in the crowd. You cannot. If you see a single, individual face, a person, you might lose the cold detachment that is your shield. You are not performing for them. You are performing for the law, for the Baron, and for the ghost of a girl who begged you for a kindness. You climb the steps to the platform. The wood is slick with mist. From up here, the crowd is an undulating mass of color and sound. You can see the whole square, the rooftops, the gray sky above. You feel terribly exposed, the sole focus of this entire town. You walk to the center of the platform and rest the head of your axe on the wooden floor. You stand behind the block, your gloved hands resting on the end of the axe handle. And you wait. This is the longest part of the wait. The anticipation is a tangible thing, a tightening in the air. The crowd's roar softens to a murmur. All eyes are on the entrance to the square, waiting for the procession. Minutes stretch into an eternity. You stand perfectly still, a black, motionless statue. You regulate your breathing. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady. You feel the rough grain of the axe handle under your gloves. You feel the solid planks of the scaffold beneath your boots. You anchor yourself to these physical sensations. You do not think about the boy. You do not think about his sister. You think of nothing. You are an empty vessel, waiting to be filled with the purpose of the moment. Then, a shift in the crowd. A new sound. A drum. A slow, steady, funereal beat. Boom, boom, boom. The procession has begun. A wave of silence rolls across the crowd as they turn to watch. You look up. At the far end of the square, the procession enters. First, the town crier, ringing a bell. Then, a priest, holding a crucifix, his voice a low, monotonous drone of prayer. Then, the boy, Thomas. He is flanked by 2 heavily armed guards. His hands are bound in front of him. He is younger than you imagined. Scarcely more than a boy, his face pale and beardless, his eyes wide with a terror so profound it seems to have frozen him. He stumbles as he walks, his legs barely able to hold him. His sister. You scan the crowd, the sea of faces, looking for her, but you cannot find her. Perhaps it is better that way. Behind the boy walks the Baron's captain of the guard, a stern, imposing figure in a polished steel helmet. He represents the authority that has decreed this end. The procession moves with excruciating slowness towards the scaffold. The only sounds are the drum, the priest's prayers, and the shuffling of the boy's feet on the cobblestones. The crowd is utterly silent, holding its collective breath. You watch the boy's face. You watch the way his eyes dart around, not seeing anything, just a wild, panicked animal looking for an escape that does not exist. Your promise to his sister echoes in your mind. A clean cut, a kindness. The procession reaches the foot of the scaffold. The drum stops. The silence that follows is absolute, a heavy blanket over the entire square. The priest places a hand on the boy's shoulder and murmurs a final blessing. The boy does not seem to hear him. He is staring at you. At the black hood, the two empty eyeholes. At the axe. The guards guide him towards the steps. He hesitates, his body refusing to move. One of the guards gives him a rough shove, and he stumbles up the steps, almost falling. He stands on the platform, trembling, a fragile figure in the vast, open space. The captain of the guard steps forward and unrolls a scroll. He reads the sentence in a loud, clear voice. The words are lost to you. You are not listening. You are watching the boy. You are watching his chest rise and fall in shallow, rapid breaths. You are watching the way he clenches and unclenches his bound hands. The captain finishes reading, rolls up the scroll, and nods to you. It is time. You take a step forward. You gesture towards the block. The boy does not move. He is paralyzed with fear. The priest gently tries to guide him, but he resists, a low whimper escaping his lips. You feel a surge of something hot and sharp in your chest. Pity? Anger? You do not know, but you know that this hesitation, this struggle, is a form of suffering. It is a violation of your promise. You step up to the boy, close enough to feel the heat of his body, to smell the scent of his fear. You place a gloved hand on his shoulder. It is a firm, steady pressure. You lean in, your hooded face close to his ear. It will be quick, you whisper, your voice low and calm, meant only for him. Do not be afraid. Think of your sister. Close your eyes. It will be over before you know it. Something in your voice, in your touch, seems to reach him. The rigidity goes out of his body. He gives a small, shuddering nod. He allows you to guide him to the block. He kneels, the rough wood of his trousers scraping against the platform. You gently position his head in the shallow, concave groove of the block. His neck is so thin, so pale against the dark, stained wood. You can see the pulse beating frantically in his carotid artery. Close your eyes, son, you murmur. He obeys. His eyelids flutter shut. A single tear escapes and rolls down his cheek. You step back. You take your position. You grip the axe handle with both hands. You raise the axe. You can feel the eyes of the crowd on you, a physical weight. You can feel the fate of the boy under your power. You block it all out. There is only you, the axe, and the small, pale target of the neck. You think of your training, of the countless times you have practiced on sandbags, on animal carcasses. You think of the perfect arc, the perfect point of impact, the follow-through. You think of the girl at your window. A clean cut, a kindness. You take a breath, you hold it, and then, with all the strength, all the skill, all the focus you possess, you bring the axe down. The sound is not a loud chop. It is a soft, wet thud. A sickeningly final sound. You feel the impact travel up the handle, a jolt through your arms. The cut is perfect. The head falls into the straw-filled basket you placed at the foot of the block. The body convulses once, a terrible, spastic jerk, and then is still. Blood fountains from the severed neck, a shockingly bright red against the dark wood of the scaffold. The crowd lets out a collective gasp, a sound that is half horror, half satisfaction. It is done. You stand there for a moment, the axe still in your hands, its head dripping red. You are breathing heavily, your heart pounding. The world seems to rush back in, the noise, the smells, the faces. You have fulfilled your duty. You have kept your promise. A wave of nausea washes over you. You lower the axe, its head resting on the blood-soaked platform. The captain of the guard gives you a curt nod of approval. The priest is making the sign of the cross, his face as pale as the boy's. The guards move forward to deal with the body. Your work here is not finished. You are responsible for the cleanup. But first, the payment. The Baron's reeve, a man with a ledger and a coin purse, makes his way up the steps. He avoids looking at the body, at the blood. He counts out a handful of silver coins into your gloved hand. The coins are cold and heavy. You do not look at them. You simply clench your fist around them. The price of a life. The price of your soul. He makes a mark in his ledger and retreats down the steps as quickly as he can. Now you are alone on the platform with the dead. The guards have carried the boy's body away. The head is in the basket. The blood is everywhere. The crowd is beginning to break up, their morbid curiosity satisfied. They are talking loudly now, laughing, heading for the taverns to discuss the spectacle. You are left in the aftermath, with the grim reality of your work. You take a bucket of water that was left for you at the foot of the scaffold. You take a stiff bristled brush, and you begin to scrub. You scrub the block, the platform, the axe. The water turns red. The work is hard, your muscles ache, but you scrub with a desperate energy, as if you could wash away not just the blood, but the memory of the act itself. But you know you cannot. The stain is not just on the wood. It is on you, forever. The sun is past its zenith by the time you are finished. The square is almost empty now. The vendors have packed their stalls and departed. A few stray dogs lick at the damp cobblestones where you threw the bloody water. The scaffold stands clean, or as clean as it can ever be. The dark, old stains remain, a permanent record of its purpose, but the fresh blood is gone. You have disassembled the terrible stage, piece by heavy piece, and stacked it once more against the wall of the town hall. The block sits like a dark, brooding toadstool atop the pile of timbers. The square looks almost normal again, but you can feel the ghost of the event hanging in the air, a psychic residue of fear and violence. You are bone weary. It is a weariness that goes deeper than muscle and bone. It is a fatigue of the soul. You gather your tools. The axe, now clean and deceptively benign. The bucket and brush. The basket containing the boy's head, now covered with a piece of sacking. This is your final duty to him. A quiet disposal in unconsecrated ground outside the city walls. You do not want to carry it, this grim parcel, but it is part of the job. No one else will touch it. You begin the long walk home. You do not pull up your hood. There is no need. The few people still lingering in the streets see you coming and melt away into doorways and alleys. They have seen what you can do. The fear they have for you has been renewed, sharpened. You are not just a pariah now. You are a fresh terror. The weight of the axe in one hand and the basket in the other feels balanced, a perfect symmetry of your existence. The instrument and the result. The journey through the narrow streets is a lonely pilgrimage. You are acutely aware of the silence that follows you. You pass a bakery, and the warm, comforting smell of bread seems like a mockery. You pass a church, and the sound of choir practice, the high, pure voices of boys singing, is a knife in your heart. These are the things of a world you can never belong to. Your world is one of cold steel, splintered wood, and the coppery scent of blood. You reach the postern gate and pass through it, leaving the city of the living behind. You walk along the muddy track by the wall, the path that is your only true territory. You do not go straight to your home. You continue past it, towards the scrubland that slopes down to the river. There is a place there, a thicket of thorny bushes and gnarled trees that no one ever visits. The ground is soft and loamy. This is where you bring the unclaimed parts, the sad remnants of your work. You find a suitable spot beneath a twisted old hawthorn tree. You do not have a shovel. You use the head of your axe and your gloved hands to dig a hole in the damp earth. It is a shallow grave, but it is a grave nonetheless. You work quickly, the physical exertion a welcome distraction. When the hole is deep enough, you take the head from the basket. You do not look at it. You cannot bear to see the boy's peaceful, empty face. You gently place it in the hole and cover it with earth. You pat the ground down, making it as level as you can. You scatter some dead leaves over the spot to hide the disturbed soil. There will be no marker, no name, no prayer, but in your own way, you have shown a final, secret respect. You have returned him to the earth. His sister will never know. It is a kindness that will remain your secret, a tiny, weightless thing in the crushing gravity of your sins. You stand and wipe your earthy hands on your trousers. The air here smells clean, of damp soil and vegetation. The river murmurs nearby. It is peaceful. You should feel a sense of completion, of a job done. Instead, you feel hollowed out, scraped clean. You turn and walk back towards your small house, a black figure moving through the gray twilight. You reach your door and step inside. The room is cold and silent. The embers in the hearth are gray and dead. You drop the bucket and brush by the door. You carry the axe to its corner and lean it against the wall. You do not cover it. Let it stand there. Let it be a reminder. You are too tired to hide from what you are. You strip off the heavy leather gloves, your fingers stiff and clumsy. You drop them on the table. You peel off your jerkin. You walk to the bucket of clean water and plunge your hands into it, scrubbing at them, even though they are already clean. You wash your face, the cold water a shock but not enough to wake you from this walking trance. You have not eaten since morning. You should be hungry, but the thought of food is repulsive. The coins the reeve gave you are still clenched in your fist. You open your hand and look at them. A handful of silver, gleaming dully in the dim light. The price of your work. You feel a sudden surge of revulsion. You want to throw them, to scatter them into the dirt, to be rid of their tainted weight. But you cannot. This is how you live. This is what you use to buy your bread, your cheese, your ale. This is the currency of your damnation. You unclench your fist and let the coins fall onto the table. They land with a clatter that sounds obscenely loud in the silent room. You cannot stay here. The silence of the room is pressing in on you, suffocating you. You need noise. You need distraction. You need to be somewhere that feels alive, even if you are not a part of that life. You pull on your cloak, not bothering with the hood this time, and walk back out into the night. You walk to the leaky cask. You need the burn of ale in your throat. You need to feel something other than the cold hollowness in your chest. You push open the tavern door. The scene is the same as always, yet different. The room is crowded, noisy, smoke-filled. But tonight, the talk is all of one thing: the execution. As you step in, the hush that falls is deeper, more profound. Every eye turns to you. You are not just the town executioner tonight. You are the man who did the deed they all witnessed. You are the star of the show. You ignore them. You walk to your corner table, the one that is always empty. You sit down, your back to the wall. The serving girl approaches. Her face is pale. She looks at you with a new expression in her eyes. Not just the usual weary indifference, but something else. Fear, awe. She does not wait for you to put the coins down. What will you have? She asks, her voice barely a whisper. Ale, you say. Your own voice sounds strange to you, a rough rasp. She scurries away and returns with a full mug, her hand trembling so much that ale sloshes onto the table. She sets it down and hurries away without taking any payment. A drink on the house. Or perhaps a drink to keep the monster in his corner. You drink deeply. The ale is bitter, but the alcohol is a welcome fire in your veins. You try to lose yourself in the noise of the tavern, to become the anonymous observer you usually are. But tonight, it is impossible. You are the center of the story. You hear your own actions described in lurid detail by men who were 100 feet away. And the way he brought the axe down, swift as lightning, it was, a man says, his voice full of drunken admiration. Not a twitch, cold as ice, he is. A true professional, says another. They speak of you as if you are not there. They speak of you as if you are not human. A force of nature, an instrument. They are making you into a legend, a dark folktale to frighten their children with. And in doing so, they are stripping away the last vestiges of your humanity. You drain your mug. The girl brings another without being asked. You drink that one too. The alcohol is beginning to work now, dulling the sharp edges of the day, wrapping your mind in a thick, fuzzy blanket. The noise of the tavern begins to blur, the individual voices merging into a meaningless drone. You stare at the flickering candle on your table, its small flame dancing and swaying. You think of the boy's face, the tear on his cheek, the soft thud of the axe, the fountain of red. The images loop in your mind, a silent, horrific dance. The ale cannot wash them away. Nothing can. You do not know how long you sit there. Hours, perhaps. The tavern begins to empty. The loud, boastful men stumble out into the night, their stories exhausted. Soon, there are only a few sad-eyed drunks left, mumbling into their cups. The serving girl is cleaning tables, her movements slow and weary. The publican is yawning behind the bar. It is time to go. You stand up, your legs unsteady. You leave a few of the baron's silver coins on the table, more than enough to cover the ale. The girl watches you, but says nothing. You walk out of the tavern and into the cold, empty street. The moon is high in the sky, a sliver of silver in a sea of black. The town is asleep. The walk home is quiet, your footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. The world feels unreal, a stage set that has been abandoned after the play is over. You are the last actor, forgotten and left behind. You reach your home by the wall. The door is a black rectangle in the moonlight. You step inside. The room is dark and freezing cold. You do not have the energy to build a fire. You stumble towards your cot in the darkness. You do not undress. You fall onto the thin mattress, the cold seeping into you instantly. You pull the rough blanket over your body. You are drunk, but you are not numb. You can still feel everything. The ache in your muscles. The chill in your bones. The gaping, hollow wound in your soul. You close your eyes. You see the scaffold against the gray sky. You see a boy's trusting eyes. You hear a girl's whispered plea. You smell the blood. These are your companions now. They will be with you tonight, and tomorrow, and for all the nights to come. This is the price of the silver coins. This is the wage of your work. You lie there, adrift in the cold and the dark, and wait for a sleep that you know will bring no peace. The next day begins the same, but different. The cold is the same, a physical presence in the room. But the dread that has been your companion for the past 2 days is gone. In its place is a vast, gray emptiness. The event is over. The tension has snapped, leaving behind a slack, frayed rope. You move through the motions of your morning ritual, the fire, the water, the hard bread, but you feel like a puppet, your strings being pulled by habit alone. There is no thought behind your actions, no feeling, just a hollow, echoing void. Today is a day for other duties. An execution is a rare and dramatic event. The bulk of your work is more mundane, more sordid. You are not just the headsman. You are the town's enforcer of bodily punishments, the keeper of its official pain. And today, you have a task. A thief, caught stealing cloth from a merchant's stall, has been sentenced to be branded. It is a lesser punishment, a mark of shame to be carried for life. For you, it is just another part of the job. After your morning meal, you prepare. You do not need the axe today. You need the branding iron. You take it from its place in the corner. It is a short iron rod with a wooden handle, the end of it forged into the town's crest, a wolf's head. You place the end of the iron into the heart of the fire, burying it deep in the glowing embers. You will leave it there to heat while you go to the jail. You put on your jerkin and your gloves. You do not need the hood for this. A branding is a less formal affair, often carried out in the jailer's yard, away from the main square. But your face is its own kind of hood. It inspires the necessary fear. You walk through the town. It is a normal day. The market is bustling. People are going about their business. The scaffold is gone. The execution is already becoming a memory, a story. A few people still shy away from you, but the intense, focused fear of yesterday is gone, replaced by the usual low-level revulsion. You are yesterday's news. You walk to the town jail, a squat, grim stone building near the west gate. The jailer, a large man with a brutal face and a key ring that jingles like a sleigh, is waiting for you. He grunts a greeting, his eyes avoiding yours. He's in the yard, he says, and gestures with his head. You follow him through a dark, foul-smelling corridor, past cells from which pale faces and desperate hands press against the bars. You hear moans and curses. The air is thick with the stench of human misery. The jailer unlocks a heavy door at the end of the corridor, and you step out into a small, high-walled yard. A single post is set in the middle of the yard, with iron rings fixed to it. Chained to the rings is the thief. He is a small, wiry man, his face smudged with dirt, his eyes wide with terror. He sees you and begins to struggle against his chains, making a low, animal sound of fear. "Be still," the jailer growls, and cuffs him on the side of the head. The man slumps against the post, whimpering. "The iron is heating at my house," you say to the jailer. "I will return." The jailer just nods. You leave the yard, the thief's whimpers following you down the corridor. You walk back through the town to your small house by the wall. You go inside and retrieve the branding iron from the fire. The end of it is glowing a bright, angry orange. The heat radiates from it, and you can feel it on your face even at arm's length. You wrap a thick, damp cloth around the iron to keep it from setting fire to anything on your walk back. You carry it carefully, holding it away from your body. It feels alive in your hand, a captured piece of the sun, hungry to make its mark. The journey back to the jail is a strange one. You are carrying a rod of pure pain through the bustling streets. No one knows. They see a man in a leather jerkin carrying a cloth-wrapped bundle. They do not see the terrible heat contained within. You arrive back at the jail. The jailer lets you into the yard. The thief is still chained to the post, sobbing quietly now. The jailer has pulled the man's shirt down, baring his right shoulder. The skin is pale and goose-pimpled in the cold air. You unwrap the branding iron. The glow has faded slightly, but it is still intensely hot. A low hiss of steam rises from the damp cloth. The thief sees the iron, sees the faint glow, and begins to scream, a high, thin sound of pure terror. He thrashes against his chains, trying to pull away from the post. "Hold him," you say to the jailer. Your voice is flat, devoid of emotion. The jailer grabs the thief by the hair and yanks his head back, pressing his body tight against the post. The man's shoulder is exposed, a perfect, still target. You step forward. You hold the branding iron in your gloved right hand. You can feel the heat through the leather. You position the hot iron just above the man's skin. You can see him trembling, his eyes squeezed shut, his teeth gritted. You have a moment of hesitation. This is not the clean, swift finality of the axe. This is the deliberate application of agony. It feels dirtier, more personal. But it is the sentence. It is your job. You press the iron to his flesh. The sound is horrific, a loud, wet sizzle. The smell is even worse. The sickeningly sweet scent of burning hair and cooking flesh fills the small yard. The thief's scream is cut off as he inhales the smoke of his own body, and it turns into a choked, gagging cough. His whole body convulses, straining against the chains. You hold the iron in place for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. It is enough to leave a permanent mark, a deep, third-degree burn that will scar over into a perfect image of a wolf's head. You pull the iron away. The man slumps in his chains, unconscious or close to it. On his shoulder, where the pale skin was, is a weeping, angry red brand, the flesh seared and blackened. The jailer lets go of his hair, and the man's head lolls to one side. "It is done," you say. The jailer grunts. He will throw a bucket of water on the man and then drag him back to his cell. The wound will likely fester. If he is lucky, he will not die of an infection. You turn and walk away. You do not look back. You carry the now cooling iron back through the streets. It is just a piece of metal again. Its power is spent. When you get back to your house, you plunge the iron into the bucket of water. It lets out a long, angry hiss, and a cloud of steam billows up, filling the room with the smell of the jail yard. The smell of your work. You leave the iron in the water and sit down at your table. You rest your head in your hands. You feel nothing, not pity for the thief, not satisfaction in a job well done, not disgust at your own actions, just a profound and bottomless emptiness. You have become a hollow man, a vessel for the town's cruelty. You sit there for a long time, in the cold, silent room, as the afternoon light begins to fade outside your window, and you wonder if there is any part of you left that is still human. Evening descends, not as a gentle blanket, but as a slow tide of gray that seeps into your room, drowning the last of the day's light. You are still at the table, your head in your hands. You haven't moved for hours. The fire has died again. The cold has returned, a familiar friend wrapping its arms around you. The emptiness inside you has not subsided. It has deepened, settled. It is no longer a feeling, it is a state of being. You should eat. The thought comes from a distant, practical part of your mind, the part that keeps the body functioning. But the thought of chewing, of swallowing, seems like an insurmountable effort. Still, you force yourself to move. Your limbs are stiff, your joints ache. You stand up and walk to the food chest. You break off a piece of bread, but you do not take any cheese. You cannot face its sharpness. You chew the bread mechanically, its texture like sawdust in your mouth. Each swallow is a conscious act of will. You are fueling a machine you no longer care about. As you eat, your eyes fall upon the coins still sitting on the table from yesterday. The baron's silver, the price of the boy's life. They seem to absorb the gloom of the room, their silver sheen turned to a dull, leaden gray. You look at them, and then you look at your hands. Your large, calloused, empty hands. These hands wielded the axe. These hands held the branding iron. These hands dug a shallow grave. They are good for nothing else. They cannot create, they cannot comfort. They can only destroy. They can only inflict pain. A strange idea begins to form in your mind. A quiet, insistent thought. What is the purpose of continuing this? This cycle of waking, of eating, of waiting, of performing some new horror, and then returning to this cold, empty room. For what? For a handful of coins to buy more bread to have the strength to do it all again? The logic of it seems suddenly, terrifyingly insane. You are a cog in a machine of misery, and the machine is grinding you down to dust. You leave the rest of the bread on the table. You walk to the door, pull on your cloak, and step out into the night. You do not head for the tavern. You have no need for the false warmth of ale or the hollow noise of other people tonight. You walk in the other direction, along the dark, muddy track that follows the wall away from the town. You walk past the place where you buried the boy's head. You do not look at it. You keep walking, further and further into the dark scrubland that borders the forest. The moon is hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds. The only light comes from the sky itself, a faint, ambient glow that turns the world into a landscape of shifting shadows and uncertain shapes. The wind sighs through the bare branches of the trees. It sounds like a lament. You leave the track and push your way into the woods. Twigs and thorns snatch at your cloak. The ground is uneven, a treacherous carpet of roots and stones hidden beneath a layer of damp, decaying leaves. You stumble often, but you do not fall. You just keep moving deeper, away from the wall, away from the town, away from everything you know. You do not know where you are going. You are just walking, putting one foot in front of the other. The physical act of moving is a relief. It gives you something to focus on other than the howling void inside you. The air grows colder as you move deeper into the forest. It smells of wet earth, of pine needles, of decay. It is the smell of a world that has no use for men, for laws, for executioners. It is a clean smell. You come to a small clearing. In the center of it stands a huge, ancient oak tree, its branches like gnarled arms reaching for the dark sky. It looks like a silent, powerful god in the gloom. You stop beneath its branches. The silence here is absolute. There is no distant sound of the town. There is only the whisper of the wind in the leaves and the sound of your own breathing. You are utterly, completely alone. And for the first time in a long time, you do not feel afraid of the solitude. You feel at peace. You lean your back against the rough bark of the great tree. It is solid and real. It has stood here for centuries, witnessing the turning of seasons, the passing of generations. It has seen famines and plagues, wars and peace. Your own small, miserable life is nothing to it. A flicker of a candle in a hurricane. The thought is not frightening. It is comforting. The sheer scale of your own insignificance is a kind of release. You slide down the trunk of the tree and sit at its base, on the cold, damp earth. You pull your cloak tighter around you. You are not cold. The emptiness inside you has become a strange kind of insulation. You look up through the tangled black branches at the sky. A small break has appeared in the clouds, and a single, bright star is visible, a tiny pinprick of diamond light in the vast darkness. You stare at it. You think of the stable boy, Thomas. You wonder if he is somewhere out there, in that vastness. You think of his sister. You hope she has found some kind of peace. You think of the branded thief, and you hope his wound does not kill him. You think of your own life. A long, gray road of solitude and grim duty. You have walked it for 20 years. You are tired, so very tired, the kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. It is a weariness of the spirit, a deep, cellular exhaustion. You have no more to give. You are an empty vessel, a tool that has been used until it is broken. You close your eyes. The image that comes to your mind is not of the scaffold, or the axe, or the blood. It is the image of the quarry you sat by, what feels like a lifetime ago. The still, black water. The reflection of a hooded man. The ripple of the stone, distorting the image until it was gone. You feel a similar sense of dissolution now. A gentle blurring of the edges of yourself. You are not a man. You are not an executioner. You are just a presence. A tired consciousness sitting at the foot of an ancient tree under a single star. The wind whispers through the branches above you. It sounds like a lullaby. The cold of the earth is seeping into you, but it is no longer a hostile cold. It is a slow, calming coolness, a final embrace. You do not shiver. You do not fight it. You welcome it. You let it fill the emptiness inside you. You think of nothing. You feel nothing. You are simply here. And then, you are not. The star continues to shine. The wind continues to whisper. The ancient tree continues to stand guard. But you are gone, dissolved back into the silence from which you came. Fading, fading, into the cold, quiet earth.